Good morning, family, and thank you so much for watching me wherever you are watching me, whatever time you are watching me. I hope and I pray that I am a blessing to you and to your family. I hope and I pray that there are things that I share with you and that you share with me that help you to elevate to the next level of your life. I am hoping that wherever you are and that whatever you are facing, that you recognize and realize the power that you have inside of you that whether it is good, that you will be able to embrace and really sit in that good. And if it's not so good, and if it doesn't feel so good, that you would understand that it is good for you after all, and that wherever you are is just momentary. It's just a pit stop as you head towards the victory that has already been written for your life. I'm going to jump into the message for today. And I'm going to warn you now that this message is not for the lighthearted. I'm going to give this trigger warning before the message even starts. And so I'm going to warn you that if you are a super religious person, you may want to leave now. If you are a person that has not begun to do any internal work on yourself, and if you have not been able to live or speak or operate from a place of truth internally, then this message may be triggering for you. I'm going to warn you now because if you're not ready to do the work, then it would be advantageous for you to just leave and come back just a little bit later when you're ready to do the work. Because this message is going to deal with and speak to some things that many people are not ready to deal with. And only those that are intending to grow, to develop, to go after everything that they were sent here for, those are the only individuals that are going to be able to really stomach this message. And maybe you're on the fence today. Maybe you're on the fence of asking God what the next step is. Maybe you're on the fence of trying to figure out this next phase of your life. And I am praying that if that is the case, stay around just a little bit. Because I believe that in today's message, you will hear something that is going to, one, challenge you. It's going to make you do some internal thinking. It's going to make you do some self actualization. And then it's going to give you a path and a plan to move forward into the future in a way that is going to cause your life to rise to the next level. The message today is entitled Letting It All Go. And that is indeed a deep rooted subject on so many different layers. But in letting it all go, I think that when we first hear that message, many of us hear it from the perspective of letting people go or letting places go. And we have been in a society or in a council culture that believes that it is so much easier when letting something go to dismiss it, to be dismissive of it, in some instances to be hurtful of it. I was watching or reading through some social media the other day, and I was watching how so many people were lacking the art of accountability where it comes to relationships and friendships, and how it becomes so much of a fad or a cultural normative or cultural norm for people to jump on the bandwagon of dismissing things and dismissing people. There used to be a day where when you would walk away from something or when you would remove something from your life, you did it with grace. You did it with a level of understanding that everything that you do in this moment will come back to you in the next moment. And so there used to be a graciousness that people would offer whenever you were walking away from a job or you're walking away from a church or you're walking away from a relationship or you're walking away from something that you have identified is not helping you, and or you recognize that if it was helping you, that maybe you're not ready for that type of help yet, because that's a thing too. But when I was watching this social media post, it was someone who posted something about when we walk away from church, you don't have to be dismissive or hurtful towards the people who no longer go to your church because it's not a game. And it started my mind thinking of how many of us have have been dismissive of people and places and or things because we believe that we are right. And I want to challenge you with something today, that what if you weren't right? What if your dismissive nature was not guided by God? What if you're pushing something off or pushing something away that maybe God was calling you to be accountable to was really just you following the cultural norms? You know, when we look at social media, when we look at this particular culture, there are so many mixed messages. There are mixed messages because to everyone, everything has become almost like a game. You know, at work, you have people that play so many different corporate level games. If you don't know how to play the game, it's almost impossible in many instances for you to rise. If you don't know how to make yourself look better than the next person, if you don't know how to spill the dirt on one party so that you can look better, if you don't know how to manipulate and pull people close to you and harm other people, then it's almost impossible for you to grow to the next level. And so even in the corporate spaces, we have a lot of people that play games, the game of politics. In relationships, we have so many people that that have mixed messages in the social media posts. Some people will tell you to hold on to things and to make things work, and then you'll see other messages where people will say walk away from things and let stuff go. And if they, give them back the same energy that they give you, and all of these different messages to get you to line up with a school of thought that will cause you to operate against the natural of whatever is inside of you, which is love. Or then we have the church, right? Where there's so many different mixed messages. We have some people that will use the Bible to demonize, or they will use the Bible as a weapon against anyone who doesn't believe or think like they think or believe. And so they take an isolated scripture or an isolated group of scriptures and they hail those as insults against someone that is different, not looking at the full context of anything or doing their own research to find out how things were placed, where they were placed, and why they were changed the way that they were changed. They just use whatever they've been told, or they will demonize any denomination that does not believe in the same way that they believe, or any religion that does not believe the same thing that they believe. Therefore, we are in a culture and a society that is not teaching us how to come together and operate from a place of love and authenticity. But we are in a society and in a culture at this particular time and in this particular season that it is very difficult for those that have natural love in their heart to allow that natural love to exude forth into the next moment. And it is only when we do things through love and by love that we will see the results that God has for us in our lives. The culture is so tainted that the other day I was sitting in a conversation of two guys that were having a conversation about relationships. And one of the guys said, I find it really, really hard whenever I start liking a girl, because I will start giving her myself and then I'll start shutting down because you can't tell them anything. You can't tell them, your pains or what you really want, because they'll use it against you in the future. And the other guy said, "No, I've learned to just be harshly truthful. I've learned to just be aggressive with my truth. And if I miss them, I miss them. And if I want to be around them, then I'll tell them I want to be around them." And all of the other people that were standing in a close ear shot of them, all of the other people, when that guy started talking, they all started laughing and said, "Oh no, you never do that." And I sat there for a second and I was bothered because I said to myself, wow, we live in a culture that you can't be honest with people. You can't be truthful and share where you are and what you actually feel. That's dangerous. It's dangerous when you operate under a cultural norm. It is dangerous when you operate through games and through manipulation. It is dangerous when you have listened to the advice of people who do not know what love is, and people who have been broken and people who have been damaged. There are so many broken people that hurt others, and some of these broken, hurt people have microphones and they are sharing disinformation about love and sharing disinformation about how to go after the next moment of your life. They're sharing so much different information that is disinformation about how to go after the things that God has for you. I heard someone say the other day, you have to keep hustling, and even when you're tired, you've got to keep hustling. Therefore, not ever giving you the space to understand that there are some seasons in your life that you don't need to hustle. There are some seasons in your life that the real hustle is in you resting. But if we're not careful, and if we listen to everything that this culture will say and everything that this society will say, then we will understand that we will find ourselves going nowhere really, really fast. We will find our relationships going nowhere really, really fast. We will find our businesses going nowhere really, really, really fast because we are operating by a system inside of this culture and inside of this world. And when you know that you've been called to greater and you know that you have been called to higher, you can be in this world, but not of this world. That you have to allow your mind to be transformed. That you continually and consistently do things from the right place and not from what's been told to you or what's being said around you. 1,000 can fall at your right side and 10,000 at your right hand, but no evil comes nigh your dwelling. Why? Because you don't operate in the same system. There is one scripture I want to read, but there's a couple that I want to talk about. But there's a scripture in Joshua chapter 7, verse number 12. And the scripture reads this way. It says, that is why the Israelites cannot stand against their enemies. They turn their backs and they run because they have been made liable to destruction. I will not be with you anymore unless you destroy whatever among you is devoted to destruction. I want to tell the story about this particular scripture really quickly. We've got Joshua that had just conquered a great battle at Jericho. The wall come crumbling down. We all know the story about the battle of Jericho, the wall of Jericho. And so they had this fire and this tenacity, knowing that they could conquer almost anything. And they had another battle that they were about to come up against. And this battle, it seemed to be much less than what the previous battle was. The people were not as strong and they were not as many. And so certainly, if they had just conquered the last thing, certainly they were going to win in this particular battle. Much to their demise, when they went after this battle, they sent few people because they didn't think too much of it. And they were beat sorely. Joshua was so confused as to how could I be beat sorely? I did exactly what I knew I should do, and I just won that last battle. Why am I sitting in this position now that I am losing sorely? And maybe that's where you are today. Maybe you're in the position of saying, I'm doing what I thought I should be doing, and I am losing sorely. I am going and listening and reading and studying and subscribing to different levels of thought. Why is it that I am not winning this battle? God was very clear with him. He said, you're not winning this battle because there were bits and pieces of where you just came from that you were not supposed to carry with you. And one of the young men, Achan, and his family had hid some of the treasures of the land of Jericho where they were supposed to not hold on to, but they carried them into this next moment. I want to ask you a question today. What have you carried into the last into this next moment? What have you carried into this next place? What have you carried into that next relationship? What have you carried into that next job? What are you carrying right now that you should have let go of? What part of your heart has been damaged and broken, and you are allowing that to hold you back from being who you authentically are? What fears are you grabbing a hold to and you're carrying from place to place and not allowing yourself to show up authentically as who you were created to be? Are you listening too much to social media? Are you listening too much to the opinions of people that are around you as opposed to standing firm on who you know you were created to be? I was challenged the other day. I Something had disappointed me. I was talking to one of my best friends, and I was telling them about a particular season in my life where I was extremely disappointed because I had loved people and given from out of the pureness of my heart and out of the goodness of just wanting to be a blessing to someone else. And those same people, they hurt me. And I walked around for a little while not paying attention to the fact that I was hurting. And I put some walls up to protect myself. That was just like me housing and carrying something and harboring something, because even though I wasn't addressing it, it was addressing me. It was addressing every situation that I was stepping into. And it wasn't until I sat with what it was and I was able to verbalize out of my own mouth to God, God, this hurt me. They hurt me. I allowed them to hurt me. And I want you to deal with this pain. It wasn't until I sat with myself in honesty and I refused to just cover it up and keep going. It wasn't until I sat with myself that I was able to pass to the next phase of letting it go so that I did not go into the next moment carrying the baggage and the weight from the last place I had been to. Sometimes, friends, it is not that where you are is not supposed to work for you, but it may just be what you're holding on to from the last place. The hurt, the pain, the shame, the things that we say to ourselves, like, I'll never let anyone else get that close. I'll never love someone authentically. I'll never be honest and be truthful about how I really feel with anyone else. I'm going to always hold back a bit and piece of myself and never give all of myself to anyone. All of those things that we learn from this culture, from this world, we learn to play these games and learn these manipulation tactics in order to climb higher. I want to remind you something today. It is completely okay and it is completely the right thing to do to continue to love even after you've been hurt. It is perfectly okay for you to continue to give your heart and for you to continue to show up and to be kind even though the world has not been so kind to you. It is perfectly okay for you to show up with grace and for you to bless those that curse you, for you to be kind to those that are not so kind to you. It is perfectly okay for you to set your ego to the side and you continue to show up and do the right thing even when the wrong things are happening around you. There is one said person in the Bible that we all know of, the story of Daniel. Daniel's story tells us the picture of how your life can be if you stand on what you know to be true as opposed to allowing external things to dictate how you show up in this world. Daniel refused to eat the king's food. He said, give me 21 days. I'll continue to eat what God has told me to eat as opposed to yielding myself and bowing down and doing what the world is doing. I'm going to continue to do exactly what God has told me to do. And we know the story. At the end of the 21 days, Daniel had risen 10% above the rest because he stood on what he knew to be true. He did not allow what was happening around him to persuade him. Sometimes, friend, you have to leave it all behind. You have to let go of what this culture is doing. You have to let go of even what your friends and your families do as a norm. When you recognize and realize that this is not the direction of what God has for your life, when you recognize and realize that what you are revealing and releasing out of your life, it is not love and it does not come from a place of goodness, but it comes from a place of protection. It comes from a place of you being hurt and trying to stop yourself from being hurt. Friends, as hard as it may be, and as hard as it may sound, don't ever allow yourself to change to become like them. Continue to be the person that God has called you to be, because it is that person that God's going to bless abundantly. I know that it's hard, and I know that sometimes it may seem like it's a rough road. Sometimes it may seem like you have to push that ego way to the back to continue to be who you were called to this earth to be, to continue to show up in love, to continue to sow seeds of goodness. But I want to remind you today that there is not one seed of goodness that you have sown into any person's life, whether they thanked you or whether they ignored you. There is not one good seed that you have sown that will not come back to find you. Matter of fact, I am praying for you today that every single seed that you have sown into the lives of those that are around you, that those seeds will come rushing back into your life, even at this season and even at this time. I'm hoping that I have blessed you, that I have encouraged you today. It was tough for me to deliver this message because I had to talk to and deal with a side of myself that maybe I didn't really want to address or deal with right now. But thanks be unto God that He is our strength and our weakness. I'm praying that you are blessed, and if you are, just simply say that down in the comment section. If you need prayer, just simply say that too. I want to thank every last one of you. Even on last week, there was such an uptick of those that commented and those that sowed. And I want to personally thank each and every one of you that did so. As soon as you sowed and I saw your name pop up, I immediately called your name out and began to pray for you. I want to thank you so much. If you need prayer, just simply say in the comment section, I need prayer. We will be praying this coming Thursday at 6 o'clock a.m. and we would love to pray for you and your family. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. And